I remember when we shot Silence of Sleep, you were hiding from the camera, especially in the first scene, and it's interesting.
But I remember, I don't know, it has nothing to do with this, but I remember I must have been used to so many years of hiding, because I was on my mother's sets when she was acting, and just hiding to look at the scene. So I was in this position of trying to find the, the place where nobody would say, just go away, and just being like a mouse and spying on the scenes and loving it. And then suddenly when I was, I don't know, 12, when I did my first film, I remember hearing people say, move away, and I always thought it was me. And no, this time it wasn't me.
That's great. Actually, I had the same feeling with Mos Def. But Mos Def has he's so oblivious of the camera, they always end up to have his back, like he's blocking the view.
Oh,
so then I just have to ask him to go away. At least, if you don't want to be in the shot, don't stop the other from being in the shot. But I have to say, in counterparty, he has a great presence, because he's not, if you put the camera here, he's not going to feel the camera is there. And I think you have this quality too, that you can be, you can be scrutinized by the camera, or I guess the microphone or whatever tool, and it doesn't feel you're communicating with this equipment. You're still communicating with the other person or the audience. But a lot of people have, to me, I see that as they have a little eye inside of their eye. So if, for instance, if I look at you and I'm aware that the camera is here, I'm not really looking at you. In fact, I'm looking at the camera here to make sure the camera looks at me. And a lot of actors have this problem. And it's very hard, because you want to help them to be communicating with the person, to create the moment. But they have little eyes in the white of the eye that is looking to the camera, and it's horrible. You coming from probably the most famous couple from this era in France.
Yeah, because I was young when I started, I didn't think, oh, I have to be as good as them, or, I was just having fun with the films. And with the album, I did think I was preoccupied, and that's why I chose to do it in English, was because I didn't want to be able, myself, to be able to compare the words with what he had written, and because it was too strong for me. So
using the foreign language is a good help.
It was easier for me, much easier stuff. And maybe I could have read a masterpiece, I wouldn't have seen it. I was just pushing everything away.
Too much thing interfering.
Yeah.
But there is this relation that's really complex and interesting, because all those guys that worked on this album are a direct influence by what your father did. And then basically their music is a tribute without you, well before that.
I was really proud. It was in the words that I didn't want to be like a pale copy of something he had done. In the music, they came out like tributes.
Yeah.
And we were all aware of, not my father's presence, but, it was like everybody knew what I had in my head, that he was, that I thought about him all the time. And Air and Nigel and Jarvis and Neil Hannon too, they were all very, very discreet about him. And I was always starting to talk about him. It was strange,
That's interesting. But I think it's a nice loop that comes back to a sort of healthy place, the way the inspiration and tribute, and then coming back to where it started, in somewhat in a different generation. So we're talking about being in in the studio. And I like the idea that the studio is a place where things are created.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was also just being a witness. At first, because I wasn't composing any music, and I was trying to write lyrics, but I wasn't very good at it, and I was very embarrassed about myself and what I was writing. So at the beginning, I was really enjoying just being a witness of their work, and
Yeah.
just being able to be there whilst they were creating something, and instrument after instrument. It was such a magical time for me, and with Nigel behind the commands. But I remember before we started going in the studio, I remember just talking to Nicolas and Jean-Benoit for such a long time, because I was so scared to start something that I wanted to talk about what it was going to be like and what kind of music, and the words were so important for me, so what lyrics, and after a while they just pushed me and said, well, you can't just talk about it for years, you just you have to go in the studio and see what happens. And it's true, because maybe nothing could have happened, and it just did, and with no pressure. Until we weren't happy, we could go on. That was a great luxury to have that.
So they were really probably so pleased to be next to you. And I think sometimes, even if you don't physically or actively participate, if you're there next to the person, it makes all difference.
I think it did make a difference, because
I feel they're doing it with you, even though you're not singing. Otherwise, they would feel like just they're like session musician, and you come to do your vocals.
Exactly. I would have hated to just receive a CD with all the tracks and then just go in the studio and record it. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of everything, and I know that they knew that. I needed that time also for myself to be able to go behind the microphone and just try things.
That's nice. I mean, it reminds me, I did some video with Björk where she's hardly not in it. We flew over Iceland and we took a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
But I was scared to death in a small plane. You go to this airport and you have some crashed plane on the side, and you have to go in the same one. And she would go always with me, and I think the fact that she was there, and even if she's not in front of the camera, it's like it goes through me like wave or something. And I think I always try to work this way, even if the artist is not in front of the camera, if he has to be behind, and it's a collaborative effort.
And Nigel was very important too, because he was a great judge, and I felt very close to him in his every judgment he had on the lyrics. Mainly for me, he was a great support. Also to be able to think about subjects I wanted to talk about, and just to make it feel personal. I had to do it that way.
How old is he?
Nigel? He's exactly my age. He's 35.
And so he worked with Beck and Radiohead?
He worked with Beck, with Radiohead, with Paul McCartney. I was the times when I had to try and put my voice on, I was so embarrassed, thinking, oh, he's worked with such talent, and
he has the same feeling probably towards you.
I'm a fake.